Hello, and thank you for tuning into the Stuff I Heard podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Peak, and we are getting at the end of October. We got Halloween tomorrow. Tomorrow. If you're listening to this, it probably is tomorrow. I'm time traveling, obviously. Um, few things. Uh, this is Stuff I Heard podcast. I am listening to an interesting podcast with Bert Kreischer talking to Confused Breakfast. I talked about it last week. I've been listening to some of their stuff. It's pretty good. Um, I'm really impressed with how they look at movies and how they sort of stream timelines together and talk about how characters can possibly be morphed into other roles. And it is one of those things where we all have sort of a nostalgia for movies. I have a lot of nostalgia with movies, and there are some movies that I can watch on repeat over and over again, like Groundhog Day or Finding Nemo, or I mean, there's a few that every time they're on, I gotta watch it. You've Got Mail. I mean, there's just a few that are tied into, I guess, memories or whatever. Empire Strikes Back. I mean, come on, it's all good. So anyway, again, check those out if you have the chance. I spent some time, I guess, this week watching some stuff, not necessarily listening to stuff. I knew that I had a trip planned for this weekend. I was going to Myrtle Beach for the Jeep Jam. I don't know if anybody went to that. The weather was pretty awful. It rained and was cold. But we had a good time. There was lots of fun Jeeps to see and fun Jeepers with their obstacle course going over some pretty crazy terrain. I took several cameras with me. I'm not sure how much I got on film yet. I haven't had a chance to go through it yet. I just walked in the door basically. But I got a lot of video of people going over some pretty crazy obstacles, and it was a lot of fun to watch. We were not able to do them this year. My buddy Danny likes to go and climb over the big obstacles because he's got one of those Jeeps that's built to climb over things. And normally we get down there and there's no problem with getting a 1 day registration and just going out there and tooling around and having fun. This year, though, I guess with the popularity of it and with COVID kind of coming down to an end, a lot of people wanted to go on vacation. A lot of people maybe made videos about it in the past and were like, I want to do that next year. So this year, we heard that they sold out Tuesday of last week. They had 2,200 people sign up for registration and they had to cut it off because they were like, I guess last year they realized they sold too many and there was a lot of people who complained that they couldn't do the course. So they realized that they had to kind of put a cap on things. Um, one of the ways you can control that, I guess, is by either setting a cap or increasing the price, which they did both of. And it looks like it didn't matter. People were anxious to get out there and have fun and show off what they could do. And it was interesting because we noticed some Jeeps that were definitely built to do the things that they're supposed to do. There were a few people who it looks like they had bought Jeeps recently and they still had paper tags on them, like brand new Jeeps with stock everything. And they went out there and tried to traverse the course with them. Some of them were able to. Sometimes it depends on the skill of the driver and also the terrain itself. But sometimes it's luck. Sometimes you hit the bounce just right and you can maneuver over some of these obstacles. So it was a lot of fun to see people in things that weren't necessarily supposed to go over these objects do it. We noticed that somebody came out there in like a Jeep Compass, which is their little compact car, and pretty much had stock everything. It's like they had bought some bigger tires, but went out there and went over some of the obstacles, and it was very entertaining to watch them do them and achieve it. Some people came out there in Jeep Cherokees. Some people had the the Jeep Compass. We noticed several brands of Jeeps that went out there and traversed this stuff and handled it. There are a few of them that didn't. There was one guy in particular that it looks like they had just bought a uh, Jeep Cherokee and it still had the stock tires on it and had the paper tag on the back. And we were on the obstacle side and watched them have to get towed off of three different things to make it through. And then we walked over to the mud pit area, which was probably, I would say, about 100 foot of a mud pit. where you go down into it and you go across and you have to get the other side. And a lot of people were kind of having trouble getting up the other side. And the minute we watched this thing go in, we thought, there is no way. Like we saw them in line, and we were like, okay, we're waiting around to watch to see what happens here. And of course, they got into the water, and they have a special kind of motor system that has sensors on it, where it has something called a hydrolock. So if it senses that it's got water that may cause the engine some trouble, it shuts down for a little while. So they got into the pit. I guess water splashed up on the engine, and it shut itself off. And it was sitting there for maybe a minute or two, and then it shut, and then it turned on, and they drove across it for about 10 feet, and then it stopped again. And then they had to get towed out of there. Now, the guy that was doing the announcing or whatever, he was sort of emceeing the event. He was talking to everybody as they came up and sort of egging the crowd on and going, this is a real pretty Jeep. You know what's wrong with it? It's too clean. That's right. And stuff like that. Kind of encouraging them to roll the windows down so they get the mud all over them and stuff like that. And anyway, these guys, he got to talking to them while they were stuck, and they said that he only had it for 8 days. So we were in the crowd making our own jokes about, I wonder if it's kids and they just borrowed it from their parents. I'm like, I'll be right back. I got to go run some errands. I'm going to go to the mall. And then coming back with it all tore up and muddy and whatnot. And, but yeah, so we had a good time. There were lots of fun things to see and do. We walked around a bit. My buddy Danny was able to get a new flag type thing for his antenna. He's a big Ohio State Buckeye fan, and he had a flag on the back with an American flag, but over time it had gotten damaged. And there's a new company that makes these flags that have a zip off function where you can change out your flags with a zipper. And the new flags are double stitched on both sides so that it's not just one piece of fabric, it's two that's sewn together, and it's a bit more durable. So he got one of those and was able to put it on there. We did a lot of looking around, just admiring other people's creativeness. One of the things that keeps coming up is the fact that everybody has different Jeeps, even though it's basically the same vehicle. None of them look alike. There's so much individuality done with each one of them. And because it was Halloween weekend, a lot of people had decorated their Jeep for Halloween. So there was like plastic skeletons attached to it and, skulls from different animals that were fake and, kind of zip tied to it in different ways. There were some creepy baby dolls that were on some of them and cobwebs. And, at night there was some riding around with the Halloween lights on the inside or on the outside. It was all very entertaining. Um, I was kind of curious at one point if the police in the area really care about them, parking in parking lots and playing their stereos a little bit. Nothing really gets out of hand. Usually somebody turns up their stereo for about 10 minutes and then that's it. Um, if they're out and they're showing off their lights, they'll do it for a little while and they leave. So I guess it's one of those things where if you were policing the area, you just kind of want to make sure everybody's safe and let them have a good time. And the understanding that there is, you know, curfew at a certain point and you want to kind of shut it down so that you're not out there all night policing these people just getting crazier and crazier, which I think that the Jeep community seems to do a pretty good job of kind of policing themselves and not getting too crazy. But we had a great time, like I said. We were able to go out and eat. When we first got there, we both had to work, Danny and I. So we got there a little bit late, but we arrived at Broadway at the beach, and a bunch of the people that we were meeting up with came from Florence and Sumter and Columbia and Myrtle Beach, and we kind of parked in the same area. We got to talk to them for just a minute, but we were kind of hungry, and everybody else had already eaten. So we went in, kind of walked up near Dave and Buster's, around the Hard Rock area, and there's lots of little restaurants that are attached. And he and I were walking up, and I made a comment about Wahlburgers has a place there, and I never eat at a Wahlburgers. And I asked him if he had, and he said no. And I said, well, do you want to try it? I mean, it's right here. Normally, when we go with our wives, they're like, I don't want to have a burger. And if I had a burger, I don't want to have it at a chain place, even though it's not necessarily a chain. It sort of is, but it's the Wahlberg family. And anyway, I thought it's probably pretty good. They have a bunch of them. I know that one of the brothers is supposed to be a chef. Let's try it out. And Danny was game for it. We had some the World Series is on TV, and I noticed they had a bar behind the little section that we could sit at, and it looked like there wasn't much of a crowd because we got there kind of late, I guess past dinner time for, for most people. I want to say we got there at about 7:30 or so. So we got right up there, had some really good burgers. I was really surprised at how good they were. Um, Fantastic. Had some cold beer, had a nice bartender to talk to. She was helpful and friendly, and we asked weird questions about the Wahlbergs if there was, if they if they'd been in there and if they, you know, whatever, how many brothers there were. We weren't really sure how big the family was, and some of the stuff she knew, some of the stuff she had to ask other people. But it was like, yeah, I'm kind of curious. I've never even thought about it until I'm sitting here right now. And of course, one of the channels on the TV, they had multiple TVs up, but one of the channels had the show The Wahlburgers on, or The Wahlbergs on. And in the show, one of the brothers was trying to dress the other one up, and then they were doing some kind of cross country trip in a food truck. But yeah, so it's kind of a nice way to start. Good meal. We got out and it started raining pretty hard, and it got cold and windy. And by the time we got back to our Jeep, everybody was breaking up for the night and headed back to their rooms. So we did too. We called it an early night and got ready for the next day. The next day we headed up, and like I said, couldn't get in, kind of bummed out about registration. We found a place to park. We got inside. We started watching the different vehicles do the obstacle course. And honestly, most of the day was us watching people do the obstacle course, and it was fun. It was fun to cheer them on. It was fun to laugh. It was fun to, see what kind of vehicles people brought. Some of them, again, were very creative. And yeah, yeah, we had a great time. We had dinner last night at a place called the Crooked Hammock, and I like to promote the positive, but listen, I'm also very honest. So let me just be honest here. I've been to the Crooked Hammock now for 2 years for this Jeep Jam thing because these guys are like, we're meeting there. I don't ever want to go back. I think everything is overpriced. I don't think that the food is good, and I think that the beer is terrible. They have this craft beer brewing thing, and I think that a lot of people are into that. I am not. Um, I like a Modelo. I like a Corona. I like, a light beer. If it's a heavy beer, then a Mexican lager or, a Kolsch. They didn't have any Kolsch. They didn't have any wheat beers. Um, it was like, hey, we have this, and if you don't like it, tough. And I don't want to go back. When we got our food, everything was kind of cold. Um, the appetizers were actually better than the food that we got. And yeah, so I made a comment to them. I said, I think next year we go somewhere else. And everybody that was at the table went, we agree. So uh, sorry, Crooked Hammock. You guys, I know every night is an opportunity to shine, and last night was not it. So we did, however, have fantastic breakfast at the Blueberry Grill at Barefoot Landing. I don't know what it is about Blueberry Grill. I've delivered food there before, and their kitchen is really tiny, but man, they crank out some fantastic food. It was great. But yeah, we had a good time. Um, I do want to talk about some stuff that I've seen, though. Okay, so let's talk about some stuff I've seen. This is stuff I heard, I know. But let me talk about some shows that have come up. I watched two comedy specials, and I think both of them were really funny in different ways. The first one I watched was Iliza Shlesinger. She has one called Hot Forever. Iliza is an established comedian. I don't know how many Netflix specials she has, a bunch of them. They're all pretty good, but I think the first one I watched was her doing one called Party Animal or something like that. Anyway, this one was really good. This one talks about her after she's had a kid. She's getting older. She's realizing she's not the hot young girl anymore. She's got a great, she's got a long, great bit about having an old faithful bra that is not attractive at all, but always is there for her, and it's really funny. Anyway, I really enjoyed her special. There's a lot of very valid points in it. I think she does a good job of sending a message as well as having comedy throughout. It's a little different than what Bert does. Bert just makes you forget about everything and just laugh. And hers is more of I have something I want to say, and it is important that you hear this. And one of the biggest points that she made was about the Roe versus Wade situation, and how we're right here in an election time, and if you don't like what happened, now's the time to vote differently. And there are a lot of candidates out there who are on both sides of the fence, and they're willing to do whatever it is to get your vote. So hold people accountable, make your vote count. I thought she did a great job. Fortune Feimster was the other comedy show that I watched called Good Fortune. Now, Fortune is quite a different comic. Uh, Fortune, I've seen her in television and movies before. She's been on Bert Kreischer's The Cabin. She's been on his podcast a couple of times. She's a lot of fun to listen to. She's got a great sense of humor. She's from North Carolina. Um, in this special, she talks a lot about how she looks like she's a kind of a butch lesbian, and she's like, but actually, I'm very dainty. I'm like a Southern belle. I have no real skills. And a large part of this comedy show is about how she looks like she's butch and she's really not. It's pretty funny. It's pretty great. I enjoyed that a lot. Okay, so two specials or two shows that I've watched that kind of came out just all of a sudden, and I had no idea about them. So Disney came out with Tales of the Jedi. Now, you guys know that I'm a big Star Wars fan. I got a giant Boba Fett picture behind me if you're watching this on YouTube. Um, Big Star Wars fan. Okay. Tales of the Jedi is animated. It is more, to me, it's more of Dave Filoni sort of giving the casual viewers and the hardcore Star Wars fans more of what we want. Um, there's a lot of people who don't know who Ahsoka Tano is because they haven't watched Clone Wars, they haven't watched Rebels. For those who have, this there's there's 6 episodes, and I want to say half of them are about her, half of them are about Count Dooku. Now, Count Dooku is another character that is very interesting that hasn't had a lot of depth done on his backstory. And I think at some point they're going to make a Count Dooku movie because it's a very interesting character. Um, anyway, the Ahsoka stuff, you get to see her as a child. You get to see how they determine if she's, how they determine she's a Jedi as a infant. Very cool. I thought they did a great job. They show her training with Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader, with him teaching her basically how to survive in a way that translates later when you watch the Clone Wars and Rebels. You get to see her move forward in time and grow and use the things that she's been taught to become a better, more powerful Jedi. And it's pretty interesting. The stuff with Count Dooku is all of the stuff that you don't see between the first and second movie. Um, you don't really get a lot of information about Dooku in the first movie, but he trained Qui-Gon Jinn, and Qui-Gon Jinn trained Obi-Wan, and he converted to the dark side at a certain point, just like Anakin did. Now, there is a scene in the second movie, The Clone Wars, where he's captured Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan's hanging in this force field thing, and he's trying to tell him, he's like, no, Obi-Wan, you misunderstand. There is dark forces at work behind the scenes that are manipulating both sides, and you're a pawn caught in the middle. And all Obi-Wan knows is that this guy is supposed to be the bad guy because he's got a red lightsaber, right? You don't just accidentally get a red lightsaber. Like you're kind of known as the bad guy at that point because you've done some things that have earned you that red lightsaber. So, you know, Obi-Wan just looks at him as the bad guy, and he doesn't really listen. And Dooku is right. Dooku's trying to tell him, listen, if Qui-Gon was here, he would understand. He'd be able to talk to you about this. He could make sense of this, but you're too headstrong, you're too into it. You think you're doing the right thing and you're not, and that is true. And so this is some behind the scenes stuff of how Count Dooku moves from being a master for Qui-Gon as a Padawan, um, and falling out of faith with the Jedi Council, falling out of faith with his Jedi religion, if you want to call it that, and realizing that at a certain point he had to change in order to affect any change. And in that change, he ends up having a very interesting interaction and battle with Yaddle. Yaddle is the character that looks a lot like Yoda, the female Yaddle. Um, People have talked about her possibly being Grogu's mother. Um, don't know if there's any truth to that. Now, the cool part is Yaddle has a really cool battle with Dooku. She's trying to help him, and at the same time, she's fighting him. And it is voiced by um, Dallas Howard, Dallas Bryce Howard. She is a actor and uh, director of some of the Star Wars stuff, especially the Mandalorian stuff. She's one of the directors. So it's pretty cool that she got to voice Yaddle. And you get to see Dooku transfer in his efforts towards the dark side. And it's all the episodes are like, I don't know, 15 minutes long, maybe 20 minutes long. It's great. It's great. My only critique is I wish there was more of them. It's so great. They did a great job. It is really fantastic. It is sort of the thing that gets me over to the next thing. I'm like, oh, thank goodness they have this. There are a few episodes of Andor that are continuing the, Star Wars behind the scenes plot of him being in this espionage situation of, now he's captured, he's in jail, and everybody blames him for causing all of this to happen. You get to see more stuff with Mon Mothma and, how the empire is growing stronger and yet also losing control in a lot of ways. And because of the fact that they keep tightening the screws, it's making the rebellion stronger. It's pretty interesting. Um, at a certain point here, we got to see Cassian Andor break out of this prison and become the hero that he's supposed to be because the show is named after him. So there's going to be a reason that he's named Andor and or that the show is named Andor. And it's not just because he's one of the bit players. He is the main character. So we're going to see him rise in this. I think it's going to be pretty good. Um, I also watched this new show that's on Amazon Prime. It's called Peripheral. And let me tell you, it is amazing. Um, right off the bat, you're watching this small town girl who is riding around on her electric bicycle. And she's got a brother who looks like he may have been past the military, who has some kind of augmentation to his body that has these glowing sensor things that are just under his skin that supposedly link him to other soldiers, that links him to memories and feelings and awareness of each other and all kinds of crazy stuff. It says, set in the future with when technology has subtly altered society, a woman discovers a secret connection to an alternate reality as well as a dark future of her own. Dun dun dun. It's pretty amazing. Um, I heard that the creators of this show also did Westworld, and I can believe it. The show is pretty fantastic. Um, she happens upon her brother who's playing this video game online in his little trailer outside, and she's caring for her mother who is going blind and has some kind of cancer that's killing her. And she steps into the trailer to do something, and his brother's like, I got to go do this thing. Can you take over for me? And she was like, yeah. And he's like, you're wasting your talents, by the way. You could make a lot of money doing what I'm doing. And she was like, oh, yeah, okay. And she hops on his headset, and then she's in this VR world where she has these goggles and hand things, and she's sitting in a chair, and suddenly she's in this war type environment, and it looks like it's set in World War II, and she's this video game character, and she goes on this rampage and basically kills all the bad guys by herself and saves the day. And because of that, she gets the attention of somebody who personally reaches out to her through this thing and wants her to do a job. And they actually get mailed some type of VR headset thing that actually looks like it almost looks like an upside down crown that fits over your head with sensors that mold on your head. And she puts it on because they offer her a lot of money to do this. And they're like, we need the money for mom's care. And so I guess I'll do this thing and just try it out. And if I don't like it, I won't do it anymore. And she loves it because it's so immersive and she suddenly has control of this body and she's doing all this crazy stuff. And she's like, man, this is amazing. And then she does it a second time, and it's not amazing. It gets pretty dark pretty fast. And suddenly there's some kind of link between her and a future world that is connected through this VR set. And you get to learn what the peripheral is. You get to learn more about her, more about the characters, more about her brother and his friends. And it is crazy bonkers good. It is really, really fantastic. Um, one of the coolest characters on the show, in my opinion, is sort of the guy that's kind of turning out to be one of the bad guys they're having to deal with. The character's name is Corbell Pickett. His name is Lewis Hertham. He was in Westworld. He's fantastic. Goodness, he's fantastic. Um, he's one of those presents that when he's on a screen, you're like, I gotta keep my eye on this guy. He is some kind of dangerous. Yeah, pretty fantastic. There's also a lady named Tania Miller. She's a British actress. I've seen her in something. I don't know what. Um, she's amazing. But yeah, really good cast. Um, the lead of this is a girl named Chloe Grace Moretz. She's really good. I clicked on her because I was like, I know her from somewhere, but I don't. I actually don't know her from anywhere. But she apparently played Carrie in the new remake of Carrie. She was in Kick-Ass and Equalizer, The Fifth Wave, Tom and Jerry. Yeah. The guy playing the lead character kind of looks like old Pratt, Chris Pratt. His name's Jake Rayner, Reynor. He looks like a young Chris Pratt. He's quite the character as well. I'm enjoying the show. I'm enjoying Peripheral. It's pretty fantastic. But anyway, all right, I'm gonna surmise this. Okay, so here's the thing: like what you like, and don't be ashamed of it. I like Fortune Feimster. Okay, I like Iliza Shlesinger. I like um Tales of the Jedi. I like Star Wars. I like Jeep Jam. If you're planning to go to Jeep Jam, buy your tickets ahead of time so you won't be like us and sitting on the outside watching instead of participating. Um, you know, that's the thing though, is sometimes you just need a thing. Sometimes you just need something that is yours, something that you can have fun with, something that you want to indulge yourself with, and you can get lost in trying to be cool. You can get lost in trying to fit in. And sometimes you just need to take your thing and let it be your thing. Because you're going to find people along the way that are into your thing, or some people along the way that at least tolerate what you do enough to want to entertain you or be a part of it. Um, you know, I guess in a way, the Jeeps are Danny's thing, and I'm just somebody who likes to watch. I'm somebody who likes to film content. I'm somebody who likes to see the passion in their eyes and sort of live vicariously through them. Um, you know, but also I also like female comedians, and I like I like Star Wars, and I like a lot of stuff. What I don't like is eating dinner at the Crooked Hammock. So sorry, Crooked Hammock, you guys really have been terrible the two times I've eat there. So yeah. Anyway, enough about that. Big positive to Blueberry Grill and Wahlburgers. They'll definitely be back there. So that's it. I'm gonna wrap this up. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being a part of this. Thanks for watching whatever you do, listening or watching on YouTube. Thank you, and I appreciate it. And if you have something you're passionate about and you want to talk about it, maybe it's something that somebody who's listening is into, and you could help broaden your friend base. Who knows? If you want to do that, let me know. You can be on the podcast. We can talk about it. Okay. And that's it. I'm gonna wrap this up. Thanks for watching. And as always, cue the cow.
So I want you guys to give me more likes. Give me more likes!